that with better men our way. You'd better pray to the Lord when you see those flying saucers. It may be the coming of the judgment day.
Welcome back, everybody, and now we'll be picking up the Skype call right where Jeffrey Ritzman's connection reestablished itself, and we just continued on as though, well, he never dropped. Now, what were you saying now?
What didn't you get?
It was just breaking up very badly. You sounded like you were talking
from the get-go, right? From the get-go.
Well, as far wherever you want to start from.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that you got to think about as far as the field goes is that there isn't one field. There isn't one. I mean, it's broke up into so many factions. So you have the lunatic fringe, you've got the New Agers, you've got the exopoles, you've got all of this kind of stuff going. And there are people doing stuff that is pushing forward. And the problem right now is that you've got these factional elements. I don't necessarily feel a big pushback from maybe exopoles, maybe pushback with what? The lunatic fringe or the New Agers or whatever you want to call them. They're not really pushing back for anything that you would suggest. In fact, they're more open to it than you would think. But who's really pushing back are the nuts and bolts guys, the old guard, the geezers, as my buddy Rich Reynolds puts it. I mean, those are the people that when you postulate some kind of theory, like a feedback loop theory, that they'll tell you, you don't need any, quote, wild ass ideas like that. So there's the problem. I mean, the problem is that there's work that's been put out that's been built upon by others. And so there's your religion part. And that work, like it's what we encountered with the hypnotic thing. I mean, when we got into that, what a pushback initially. I mean, because how many people have built their work upon the retrieved hypnotic testimony of abductees, right?
Yeah.
So it's pulling out one card from a deck of cards or a house of cards that's where it gets problematic. That's where people are resistant to any kind of different idea.
See, the whole hypnosis thing with me, it never really mattered if, like, the Bud Hopkins thing or the thing that you guys went through. In the end, it never really held much difference to me. I don't mind hypnosis. I think what's happened with it in terms of ufology is it's muddied the waters so badly that it can't be taken seriously. But in the end, it never swayed my opinion because a person gets hypnotized, they tell whatever story that they tell, they wake up, and in the end, it comes down to, all right, well, you were just hypnotized, you told the story, so what is it? It's little green men. Right. Okay, well, I've heard little green men from 9 million other people. It still doesn't tell me anything. So The only difference is instead of telling me consciously what happened to you, you told me unconsciously what happened to you, and there's holes in your story, and we're still left with no answer. So in the end, maybe
here's
the
the thing. I mean,
was hypnotized, sure, but it's still, you're not getting any answers out of it. So it's like, well, this, crumple the paper up and throw it over your shoulder. We're right back where we started from.
Exactly.
Well, but you're getting a narrative from it. You're getting a narrative of little space doctors that are coming here to do X, Y, and Z. They may be malevolent. They may be just, cold and aloof, or they may actually care about the environment. Who knows?
Yeah, but you're going to get the same stories from people who were conscious and didn't need to be hypnotized.
You're not. I disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Explain. Yeah, and in fact, I think that there's another risk, which is even if you did get that from people without hypnosis, if it's true that is a surface level story, they might be less tempted to look underneath it to see what's what than someone who is hooked on going to a hypnotist to dig up the surface level story over and over again, Well,
I mean, that's ufology's dirty little secret, guys. I mean, as far as the experiencer syndrome goes, nobody's gotten a real truthful answer about what happens. Everybody thinks that there's a scenario. There isn't a scenario of this. I mean, there's a scenario when you are hypnotized and led through an experience because you think you had it. But what no one, save maybe Whitley Strieber, has said is that the whole experience is so freaking bizarre. Bizarre is a trite term to use. And the problem is that to talk about it honestly is to look like an idiot. Luckily, I don't care to look like an idiot. Because this thing is weirder than anybody has been led to believe. And that's the thing no one wants to talk about, including some experiencers.
Yeah, I was talking to Jeremy a few nights ago. I sat in with a UFO abduction group at a local college around here, and it was really hard to get in with the group because they were very distrusting and so forth. It took me a little while to earn their trust to say, listen, I'm just here to hear what you have to say. I'm not going to judge you. I'm looking for cause and effect. I'm looking for similarities. It took a couple of meetings, and I only met with them about maybe 4 times. And it was really a pain because there were some cool people there, but a vast majority of the people that I've met that have gone through this, I see a lot of similarities and traits between them. Not all, not every one of them, but I've noticed that there's this underlying, well, I was chosen, I was given a message, you were not, so therefore I'm greater than you. And it's like, shut the hell up, you know? But I've also noticed that people that have had experiences have become incredibly creative. They have this drive to go out and create, be it art, be it anything. They always say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get away with, I want to be done with this. I want to be out of this. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. But something always pulls them back, and they always go back. And for me, that's how I can tell when the people that something did happen to that person. Because the guy that's just saying, yeah, I was abducted and I floated out of my window and I was taken up into a spaceship and I was probed and stuff, you can tell when people are giving you the BS because it's like, well, they don't have that underlying things that I've seen a lot of abductees have where, you know, like, oh, I was abducted. Well, that's why I sit around and make these creatures out of Coke cans, or that's why I paint these pictures out of chalk and do this and that. There's something underlying underneath there. Whether or not they were actually abducted by real aliens or it's the scenario that you guys are saying, which, again, both are perfectly fine in my mind. I don't have a problem with either one of them because, again, it's all something that's happening. You know, it's just, it makes me wonder, you know, again, it comes down to what is actually happening here. Wow. I'm not really sure where I'm going with it.
I don't know anyone. Okay, granted, I haven't met a whole lot of experiencers, but of the ones that I've met, I've believed a handful of alleged experiencers, and of that handful, I don't know of anyone who has the little, you know, cold doctor table, gynecology exam, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. The people that I've talked to have really had really strange, just out there experiences where they, you know, whether they were talking to a plant and they weren't the, well, you can that's another red flag where I see where it's like, yeah, I was picked up by Greys and they were told me they were going to impregnate me, and very quickly I start getting these stare off into space and spit starts dripping out of the side of my lip. It's like, doop, doop. Yeah, I've heard this story before. It's the really weird people, and they don't even tell me the full story because for them it's even difficult for them to process and put out there. You know, hooded people with rat faces, things like that. That doesn't. Right. That, you know, it's like, well, were you abducted by fairies or were you abducted by extraterrestrials? Well, it felt extraterrestrial, but they weren't extraterrestrial. It's like, okay, well, now you've got me.
Well, here's the problem. You know, there is the element of, you know, little gray guys and operating table, or something that we would say operating table.
Yes.
That's something we're putting onto it. But, you know, Bud Hopkins, I mean, he told me when I had him on my old Culture Contact show that he creates outlier data of any of the stuff he finds unacceptable. So there you go. That's how you get a cookie cutter scenario. You get people who go, okay, this story appeals to me based on my personal psychology, so I'm going to go with it. And then I'm going to enhance that in people. And eventually it just becomes this self-perpetuating thing where people go to a Bud Hopkins knowing what to expect, knowing who he is, give him the story he's looking for, and they co-create this cookie cutter story, and nobody really knows what's going on at the end of the day. But I would say if something is truly alien and truly bizarre and unknown, you can't have outlier data of an unknown. You can't have outlier data of an unknown. That makes it known.
Yeah, and it ruins it. It ruins everything else in pretension to it. You know, like, in my opinion, if you're going to get hypnotized to go back in a regression experience, you can't go to anybody. If it's going to happen to me and I'm going to do it, I'm going to go to somebody who is not at all involved with the UFO field. I want it videotaped, and I would like somebody there to witness it as well to make sure that I'm not being led on. But at this point, even if that were to happen and I were to go to somebody and say, here, I was hypnotized, here's a video, here's a witness to testify that I wasn't being led on, is the data that I'm going to give to somebody even worth anything at this point, and does it matter in the end? I don't think so anymore.
No, I mean, there's a reason that no court in the Western world uses hypnosis anymore for testimony. It's not valid.
Yeah.
There's and part of that reason, I'm sure, has to do with the satanic abuse, ritual abuse scandal of the 80s, where all these little kids were saying, mom and dad, tortured us in the woods with the whole town. People were saying this.
Yeah.
And it just turns out that it was nonsense. It was just, and they've done, whoever they are, the mystical scientists have done studies of, having kids and having the parents both recall something from childhood. And, you put the kids under hypnosis to go back to childhood, and you have the mom just recall it naturally, and they remember two different stories. So, it's not anything that is feasible. And I believe in the UK, they had banned it from ufology many, many years ago. Am I correct in that, Jeff?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really the US that has this sort of hold up on it because, again, it makes a good story. And, I mean, who doesn't want a tool, right? We want a tool by which we can study this thing. And so it looks like, well, if you can pull out memory from the brain, then there's your tool, except that it doesn't do that. We thought it did that, and it doesn't do that.
Yeah, but you can't fix a broken tool with a broken tool.
You're a broken tool.
I am, indeed.
No, you're right. You're right.
And here's another big misnomer that people think if you have some kind of experience like missing time, like I was outside, I saw a bright light in the sky. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up laying on my back at 3:30 a.m. And I don't remember anything in between. The idea that you cannot remember that, I got to tell you guys, I talked to a lot of people, and I think walking them through what happened in the place it happened, maybe at the time it happened, and just talking with them, getting comfortable with them, letting them know you're not expecting anything at all, not putting any pressure on them whatsoever to remember anything. Just talk to them, and you talk to them, and they remember what the hell happened. Not all of it,
but
probably, and likely because it's simply too far outside of their notion of reality for them to accept it mentally.
So wait, Jeff, you've done this with people with missing time?
Absolutely, I've walked people through.
And what do they remember? Do they remember a cookie cutter scenario?
No. I've never come across anybody. I mean, I did it with about, 6 people. That.
Like, what would be an example of somebody who remembered missing time walking through the scenario? What would be what they remembered?
I'll give you the one. The one was, there's 2 that I've mentioned before, and I think the one I mentioned before was a guy in a park, and he was walking late. He said, if I'm remembering this right, I think he bent down to tie his shoe, and he said there was a bright flash, and he woke up on the ground, and it was an hour and a half later, and he says, I have no memory of that hour and a half. He said, but I woke up, and I had a strange mark on my head, and it was like a line going across my forehead. And so I took him back there, and I walked him through, and he was positive that this flash of light was some kind of beam that he was taken up in, and he had built this whole thing in his head that he thought had happened, or he thought he had some memory of, but it was very fragmented. And he said, I really just can't be sure. And so I took him out there to walk around the place where we did this. I mean, where he walked me up to, he says, I was right here. I don't know. He was taller than I am. So he was 6'2", 6'3", fairly thin guy, probably good in a fight. Not a small guy by any stretch.
Fairly attractive. You
average,
took him on a date.
Average guy. Average guy. Well educated. I mean, this was no dummy, I mean, this guy, he was an intelligent guy. And we walked out, and he was very, very nervous to go out into this place alone, much less to go with me. He's like, I just don't like being in this spot again. But we walked out, and he started laughing. And I said, what's wrong? And he says, I know what's going on here. And I'm thinking, God, what does he think I'm going to pull here, right? I'm not going to kiss you, trust me. And he's like, no. He's like, I got right to this point, and I bent over to tie my shoe. And I said, you were standing here. And he says, yeah, well, right in front of us is, it's like a railing to a playground, and there's a stone bench that the railing fits into, and then the rest are poles that fit into cement housings. Well, he leaned over and whacked his skull on the railing. That's where the mark came from. The flash is you ever been hit with a football in the face?
Oh, yeah.
Trust me, you see a flash.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it was. And he says, I can't believe what this is. I can't believe that this is what it was built up in my head, dude. I swear to God. I was thinking UFO, and in the end, he had hit his head. Now, what happens to somebody who sees something weird? There is no pattern. They are one place 1 minute, and the next minute they're somewhere else. They're extremely confused. They don't know where they are. There are people around them. I didn't ever get a description of a gray, Jeremy, to answer your question. I never got the classic description. I got small, fast-moving, lots of light, cold. Those were the commonalities, if you had to pick some. But I didn't get laid out on a table, being probed, any of that kind of stuff. It was all very strange. They no longer felt like they were in the place that they were before. And then somewhere along the line, someone moves closer to them and they wake up. Now, what you can put that to, I don't know. That's not a consistent story, but that was one of them that I remember directly.
I've got a friend that's had, him and his friend had a similar experience where they were screwing around when they were kids out in the garage, throwing rocks at cars or something. They both saw a light. They looked up. Actually, TJ covered this story on the 13 Skulls, but they both looked up. They saw a light, and then they found themselves an hour later walking outside with not knowing what happened to them. Mm-hmm. I've asked him about it in depth, but it doesn't bother him. He's not like, he's like, yeah, this happened to me. I don't know what it was. And I tried to probe him, as gently as I could. I'm like, do you remember what happened here? Do you remember what happened there? Walk me through it step by step. He says, I can't. And I'm like, do you have any kind of reoccurring nightmares from this? Do you have a hard time dealing with this? All the usual stuff that people would experience. And he's like, no, he says, I remember it. I remember it because it was really, really strange. But he goes, I haven't had any lasting repercussions. He goes, and come to think of it, I haven't thought about it in a long time because I was talking to him about some of my experience. And he goes, yeah, I just kind of, he goes, I forgot about it for the longest time. And now I just remembered it because we were having this conversation. But he didn't have the, reoccurring nightmare, right, feeling that he was abducted. He just said, I don't know. I looked up, we both saw a light, and then we were outside walking. He says, well, the only thing that was really odd about it was like, okay, well, yeah, I'll talk to you later. All right, bye. And he said that they didn't talk about it for years. And then later on, I was like, oh, hey, do you remember that time? He says, that's the only thing that was strange about it is we both just forgot about it up until a certain period of time. And then we remembered it.
Well, that's the other thing is that is a recurring thing. I mean, it's been a recurring thing for me. I mean, is how seamless it is. It is so seamless. I mean, you can't believe it. I mean, you can't believe it. My wife and I got out of a truck. I saw a flash. I got back in the truck 2.5 hours later, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's seamless at the time. And then driving home, it hits you like a tidal wave. That happens sometimes. Other times it's completely seamless. And I question how anybody would remember that anything even happened. Mm-hmm. See, this is where I get a lot of flack because my outlook on it is that this whole experience or thing is a lot more common than I think we think. I think by and large that many people have probably had this experience and don't know it and or recognize something odd at the time but maybe just blew it off. I mean, we've all done that at one time or another. Mm-hmm. And it all depends on what type of person you are. Are you going to poke it to explore it a little further? I mean, my own outlook on that is if you poke it, it will poke back. And that's how this starts. This is what makes the public person to talk about this stuff is when they poke it and they go, what was that? And yeah, now I've got to find out. So
my buddy didn't have any he doesn't care to talk about it now. It doesn't bother him. But for him, it's like, yeah, what something happened. I don't know. But, I got to go take my kids to school. So I'll be right back, exactly. It's like you said, I think it has happened. And plus, how many people don't want to talk about it? I don't talk about my experiences with very many people. It's one of the reasons why I use a pseudonym for this show, because I don't want anybody that, somebody to hear this. There's a few friends that I have that know that I do this, but I don't care if they know. And they probably think I'm a crackpot anyways. So, whatever.
Wait, have you had UFO type experiences?
Yes, but...
Were you on a table? Was it a doctor experiment?
No, I'll tell you. Well, the experience that I had UFO-wise, I've had a dogman werewolf kind of experience that I don't remember. My family remembers it, and they said I was very much involved with it, but I don't remember it directly. It's not something that I think about all the time. I do, but it's not something where I'm like, oh, my life has been affected forever by this. I'm forever changed. It's like, all right, it happened. I don't know what it was. But again, I got to take my kids to school. Another experience was when I was much younger. My mom, me, and her boyfriend were driving into Vegas. It was at night.
Wait, did we just lose Jeff?
Did we?
Yeah.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, you are.
Showed the little
I'm sorry.
telephone.
I'm sorry. It hung up on my end. Jeff hung up and then came back on, and I was like,
Huh.
how did that happen?
Yay, Skype.
Yay.
Okay, sorry.
But we were driving through the desert at night, heading towards Vegas. I was probably around 5, I want to say 5 or 6. I don't know an exact age. We were driving at night, and off in the distance, off to, I want to say, the right side of the vehicle, there was a large hill, berm, or something off in the distance. There was a pulsing of light. I never saw a UFO. I never saw a gray alien. I never saw any lights flying through the sky. I was not anally probed. Nothing like that happened. I was not offered to become a government agent, which, by the way, if the government is listening, we need jobs and we work for cheap. But anyway, so I saw off in the distance, it looked like when a transformer explodes off in the distance when a thunderstorm or something happens, that blue flash of light, except for it wasn't a fast flash of light. It was a slow brightening and then dimming and then brightening and dimming. It was kind of rhythmic. Every time the light brightened from the crest of the hill, the radio in the car would get fuzzy, the headlights would dim, and we were driving an International Scout at the time. And those trucks ran like tanks. Eventually, we lost power to the vehicle, and we had to pull over to the side of the road. I was young. I didn't understand what a UFO was. And we got out. The boyfriend was trying to get the vehicle working again. So I started wandering away from the vehicle, and my mom was yelling at me. She was like, stay here. There's scorpions and stuff out there, blah, blah, blah. The pulsing became more intense, became brighter, and then it slowed down and gradually faded off into nothing. He got the vehicle started by taking a screwdriver, pressing it over onto the solenoid. It sparked, the vehicle started back up. The radio all worked fine again. We just went on our merry way. But that was it. What that could have been, it could have been a power transformer. It could have been anything out there. And that's why I don't say it's a UFO experience. But what sticks with me in my head is that I'm almost 40 now, and I still remember it when I think about it as clear as day. So, again, that doesn't mean anything either. My brain could very simply be just inserting parts into it, and it could be artificial memory. I could be matrixing. I call it whatever you will. But I remember, like, the radio was getting weird. I remember when the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out, and there was the poster for it where it showed the road going up over the crest, and there was a light coming from behind the hills. And that made me really feel creepy. Every time I looked at that poster, it made me feel really, really creepy and really, really weird. And when I watched that movie, it's got scenes like that in it, and it snaps into my head, and it makes me feel it. And it makes me feel slightly creeped out. But was it a UFO? I don't know. It could not have been. And I'm comfortable, I'm completely comfortable with it not being a UFO. So I don't walk around telling people, I've seen a UFO. That's, if you want to know my story, that's my story. You don't put on a
southern accent and tell people you saw a UFO?
For that one particular part, I'll go, I saw a UFO, which I didn't do it tonight, but I just did it now. I saw a UFO, and then tell the story. But actually, I very seldom tell that story. I didn't start telling that story until just recently, and even now, it's like, yeah, that's my retarded little UFO story, whatever. Like, I've told that at abduction groups that I've been in before. I'm like, all right, well, I'll tell my story, and they look at me like, really, dude? That's your story? Really? I'm like, yeah, that's my story.
Well, how many things throughout your life can you think of that don't exactly fit?
I think my grandparents, who have both passed away, have in one way or another screwed with me in a joking way, possibly from beyond the grave. Again, I don't know for certain. Okay. I had the dog kind of experience, which kind of related to a possession, that's another one of those weird stories where I can't say this was a werewolf dog type sighting, because I live in Michigan. I live close to an area called Metro Airport, which is the main, when the underwear bomber was flying in trying to light his underwear on fire, that's the airport they were flying into. And I'll tell the story if you want. I'm keeping you guys on longer than I think you wanted to be on, but I'll tell it to you. When I was a kid, I do remember little bits of it, but not enough to where I put my faith in my memory. We lived in this old farmhouse. It was by the airport, which is a fairly large airport. At the time, the area around it hadn't been really developed yet. There was still a lot of farmland around it. We were renting the farmhouse. It was my mom, her boyfriend, and my uncle. And we had this dog-like creature that had been hanging around the property for a while, and it was a very, very big dog. I always refer to it as There was this Great Dane that was on Oprah at one time. I believe its name was Gibson. It was a huge Great Dane dog. It had the world's record for being the largest dog. Well, this dog was, it was very similar to that. It had the hindquarters of, it had the front quarters of like a German Shepherd. It was black, and the hindquarters of more of like a Great Dane. It was thin hair towards the back. It was huge and always hung out on the edge of the property. It would come in, it would screw with our chickens, it would rip out the screens on our windows with its claws. We would pull into the driveway, it would be in the driveway. It was a really, really big dog. It never actually came up and physically attacked us, but it would taunt us, and it would do really loopy stuff. Well, one night, my mom was a partier. She's passed away now, but my mom was a partier, and she drank a lot. She was a child of the 70s. She smoked a lot of weed. She got high a lot. So they were partying one night. My mom sent me off to bed. This I do not recall, but apparently she heard me in the room one night when she was going to the bathroom, and she opened up the door to tell me, hey, get the hell back into bed. When she opened up the door, I had the bedroom window open and the screen was in it. Well, apparently this dog thing had gotten up on its hindquarters, put its paws in the window, and was staring in the window. I was standing up in my bed. I had wet myself on the bed, and I was staring at the window, and I was mumbling something, and she opened the door, and she was like, get back into bed. And then she looked over at the window and saw the dog. I just keep calling it a dog for lack of a better term. She saw the dog in the window, flipped out, took the beer bottle and threw it at the window, hit the windowsill, and the dog tore off. She said it had glowing red eyes. That could be embellishing the story. For about a week, she said that I acted very much, later on when she told the story, she said I acted like the kid in The Shining. When I was younger, my whole family swore that I was possessed, and I didn't really have a religious family, but they said something was really strange with me. I would take pens and I would prick my finger and I would write on the wall. I would write, your souls are food. Just really off the wall stuff. I wouldn't talk right. My mom would get really frustrated with me and she'd smack me and she'd be like, talk normal, act normal. Why are you acting this way? And I would just walk around saying really bizarre stuff that a kid my age shouldn't have said. I don't recall much of it right now. This lasted for about a week. We had cats in the house. The cats wouldn't go near me if I went in the room. For some reason, we had carpet going up over the wall over the bathroom. And every time I would go in the bathroom or I was in the hallway, the cats would run up and hang out on top of this carpet. And if somebody walked out of the bathroom, they would jump down on them with their claws and rip them apart. It pissed everybody off. But just really off-the-wall stuff like that. And this dog would just continuously stalk our property. My uncle got mad one day. He was out back rebuilding a Harley. And I remember it was a Joe's Hog. I don't know if you guys know anything about Harleys. It was a panhead. I remember that. See, the little things about that I remember. So I was, my uncle got ticked off and tired of seeing it. So he went and got his 22 and he shot it and winged it in the rear, and that was the last he saw of it. After that, I pretty much went back to being a normal little kid again. But we had problems in the house during that period of time where light bulbs would explode. Lights would flicker on and off. The phone would ring at random times. Again, I could equate that to it's a really old house. It's got old wiring. When I look back, there's so many things I could say as a skeptic. I could say, well, it could have been that. It could have been this. It could have been that. It's not that big of a deal. But I don't remember that. My whole family, though, they were like, yeah, you were messed up for that week and a half, that 2 weeks. You were really creepy. You were really weird. Something was definitely going on with you, and something was going on with that house. Before my mom passed away, as I got older, I started thinking about it more and more, and I tried to get my family to talk to me about it. I'd be like, so what happened? Tell me about this dog. Tell me about this house. Nobody wanted to talk about it. The closest my uncle would say to me would be like, well, you better behave or I'll get that dog after you. He'd make little jokes like that. The family would make little jokes about it, but none of them would ever come out and say, yeah, this is what happened. This is what it was. All they'd say was like, yeah, you were weird, man. Something was screwed up with you at that time, and something was messed up with that dog. Now,
are you, can I ask, what is your ancestral history? Do you know?
I have German heritage in me, and I have a lot of Native American heritage in me from a tribe in Michigan. At the top of my head, I don't know what tribe that it is. Okay. I have a lot of Indian artifacts and stuff around my house. I've begun to re-embrace my Indian heritage a little bit more over the last couple of years, but I am no means a member of any tribe or anything like that. If I were to walk into a Native American village, I would be just as white as the next white man to walk off of the street. And I've got no problem with that. I'm very curious about it. Like if you listen to our show, me and Lobo are very interested in Native American culture and a lot of the things that they've encountered and things like that, and how that applies to the paranormal.
Right.
So, that's pretty much it. Some people have said, well, that could have been a spirit guide. I don't think so, because this didn't react the way that people who have spirit guides have talked about how they react. I don't recall people that have spirit guides becoming possessed and writing on their walls with blood, poking their fingers to finger paint with blood, things like that.
So you would say that I'm sorry, that during that time where you were growing up and this was going on, you would say that decidedly you didn't have exactly the most normal, stable routine of households?
No, I know where you're going with this. So then again, this could be something that you're talking about. My mom, being that the state she was in, my mom had a large variety of boyfriends. I didn't have a very stable childhood. So my spirit soul, call it what you will, was in an unstable environment where something like this the other, as you call it, could very well have latched itself onto me. Now, I haven't had experiences like this in a very long time, thank God. I don't want to again. And, closest I've come is I think my grandparents have screwed with me from the other side in a humorous kind of touching way. But that wasn't nothing where it was, life-changing. It was kind of a chuckling moment where I just looked and said, you guys are asses, and that was the most paranormal thing I've had since then. I've been on ghost hunts and I've seen strange things, but ghost hunts and seeing ghosts and things like that don't mess with me the way that they do with most people.
Do you think that if you had taken that story with the dog in the window to the UFO alien abductee, whatever support group, that they would have told you that it was aliens and that you were being abducted?
No, but I don't think they would have cared because my story didn't fit into their paradigm. The stories that...
Well, they would have said it was a smoke screen, it was a cover story, like the owl in the window, or, I think I saw a deer or something like that. And it turns out to be a cover. It could have been, but the problem is other people in my family also saw this dog. It wasn't something that just I experienced. It was something... I really don't remember a whole lot of it. I remember what the dog looked like. I remember it being... My mom wouldn't let me play outside by myself for very long because of it. She was terrified this thing was going to come and get me because it would rear up on its hind quarters and it would walk for short distances. It would challenge you. It would charge at you, then arch down. It would be like, come on, come get me. It made itself very, very known that it wasn't afraid of us. It's not something that I throw at people. I really don't even talk about it. It's just not, I have, since I've gotten more and more into the paranormal field and I've gotten this show, and I always say since I've come out of my paranormal closet, I've talked about it. But, this is one of those things I haven't even told my wife yet because I don't know how she's going to react to it. And then a lot of my friends I haven't told about it because I don't know how they're going to react to it. And I really, part of me says, I don't really care, but the other part of me says, well, I do care because I don't want these people to think I'm a nut job. But you
can't be worried about that.
Exactly.
Well, here's an interesting thing, and I can't believe that I'm going to reference this guy because he's not exactly friendly towards us, but a guy named Jerome Clark was on the Paracast a year ago, maybe a little more. And he talked about something that in my memory seems to be almost familiar to what you're talking about. And this creature, for lack of a better word, was on his porch on some consecutive nights, and it would always run away. I don't remember the whole story and how he described its appearance, but I know that he saw it more than once, and that he made this kind of effort at one point. The next time I see it, I'm going to try and chase it and see exactly what it looks like and exactly what it is. And he never did get a super great look at it as I remember him telling it. But what he came away with in the thought process of what could this be, and he deals a lot in like experiential parts of this phenomenon and the experiences that are no less real but are simply experiences. And the thing that he came away with thinking is that this creature was more of an idea rather than a creature of some sort, which I think is a really interesting way to look at it.
Yes.
And I knew nothing of your upbringing, but it sounds fairly anti-structural to me. And so I have to wonder if this isn't representational of something no less real. And don't misunderstand me, this doesn't make it unreal. Real is so damn relative when you think about it.
Yeah.
But could this be some kind of angry representation of your upbringing? Resentment for what you were living with in some fashion, maybe not even that you were super aware of it, but is that what this is a possible representation of? And it's a manifestation based on possibly your own anger or resentment or whatever you may have felt at the time.
I'm fine with the tulpa theory, the tulpification theory. The problem with it is, and the only problem with it is there was a lot of physical evidence, footprints in the ground, rip screens, dead chickens. So unless I'm subconsciously manifesting this thing, which I guess it's possible, but I don't know if a child my age would be able to do that. But it's the physical evidence and things like that we found left behind.
Sure.
Very large prints, the ripped out screens, lots of other people seeing it, even when I wasn't around. So if I, other people in the family would see this thing. If I wasn't there, we could be off grocery shopping, and my uncle would be out working on his bike, and there would be the dog at the end of the field again, causing problems.
I just find it interesting that it's around your place. I mean, I didn't hear you mention that any of the neighbors had it attacking.
We didn't have any
house
neighbors by us at the time. I
Nothing
thought
there?
that as well. No, it was. There was a few farmhouses here and there, but on top of that, I mean, they might have saw it, but again, this happened when I was a little kid. They may have been experiencing it, but that I know of, we didn't go to the other neighbors and be like, hey, is a large demon dog possibly coming through and ripping your stuff up? No, we're just checking, dude. It's cool. Don't worry. No, it's not a problem. I don't. So
well, when you think about manifestation, just think about what that means. I mean, it essentially means it's there. It's not like this is a mirage or something like that. I mean, these things are. I mean, I look at it this way: if you can ping a rock off of it, I mean, that's the question you always ask people when they get really close to a flying saucer or some unknown craft. Is how real did it feel to you? And unless barring the fact that they may have touched it, I always ask, do you think you could have hit it with a rock?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised the answer you get from that a lot of times. And I mean, you say that someone shot this thing and winged it. I don't think that's out of the realm of something that could be manifested from. This goes against everything we know, of course. But in rare circumstances, who's to say that these manifestations don't happen and they're every bit as real as you and I sitting here? But they can't last. I find it really interesting that you didn't see it again or hear from it again after it got clipped.
Yeah.
Because maybe that's just too close. See, you can't. This thing is not going to let you put hands on it. It's not going to let you cage it or trap it or put it in a leg hold. That's not in the cards here. I mean, this thing is existing on its own based on some kind of weird manifestative thing that we know nothing about. Makes it no less real.
Yeah, and I'm completely fine with all of those explanations. I don't know what it was. I don't remember.
Believe me, I don't either.
I don't know what it was. I don't remember it, but it is something that over the recent years has crept back into my thought process again.
Bro. Bro.
Yes.
Why can't we just cry about childhood together? Come on, baby.
Because
let's just cry about childhood together.
I've moved on from there.
Let's get this. Let's exercise this demon dog together. Come on.
It's pretty much exercised. I'm fairly cool with it, man.
Oh, I must have missed that part.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with it. I'm fine with it.
I think it's a pretty amazing story. I mean, it is.
Yeah, it's the only thing that strikes me as odd about it is it's not it's a werewolf. Well, okay, it's a possession. What strikes to me is this is what I gravitate to, is it wasn't just one thing, which is a lot of the paranormal. A lot of people want to put labels on it. Well, this is a UFO abduction case. This is a poltergeist case. This is a Bigfoot case. Well, you can't say that because you said you saw lights flying around the sky and then you saw a Bigfoot. So that's two totally different phenomena that are combining themselves right there in some way, shape, or form. Again, that's why I go back to I'm a nuts and bolts kind of person, but I understand that it very well and very easily could extend beyond that, and I'm totally fine with that. I go with nuts and bolts because it's like you said, it's easier for me to grasp to, but I'm not going to go up and fight about it and pound my chest because it's like I told Jeremy the other day, when somebody says, well, what do you think about the paranormal? It's like, well, what do you mean the paranormal? To me, the paranormal is like a big zoo. When you go to a zoo, you've got penguins over here, lions over here, birds over there, fish over here. They're all completely different things, but they're all in this zoo. And that's, to me, that's what the whole paranormal realm is. It's so
you're not against the idea that all of this paranormal phenomena could be inextricably linked to each other?
I think a lot of it is, but I think it's like you said. See, we all agree on the same ideas in a lot of ways here. This is all something that's all linked together, but because we are what we are and we're trying to comprehend what we can't grasp that. And we try to. I think we get little meaty bits of it, and I think we understand little pieces of it, but not enough to where we can say this is what this is and this is what that is. You just can't do it that way. And in my personal opinion, once everybody comes to the conclusion that well, we don't know what it is, we know what it isn't, and we can start taking these little bits and pieces and try to categorize them together and try to move on. Once we get comfortable in that environment, we might actually start to learn something instead of trying to beat each other down and things like that. Like that story you told earlier about taking the people for a walk that have had the flashes and things like that. That's the kind of stuff that we ultimately want to get to on this show. We want to tell people, be open-minded, don't ground yourself, and don't fret somebody or try to put somebody off for what they believe. You know, and that's why I stay away from the ufology thing. You know?
Right. I mean, to me, it's like, I mean, you guys probably know this as well as anybody else, that anytime you mention a psychological explanation, that's like the Antichrist, right? And you can't go there. I mean, don't go there, because that kind of negates everything.
You know?
So well, cry about this. Why does nobody want to cry anymore? Really one on the show wants to cry.
Cry.
Go ahead, Jer.
Flip out
Jer, just go ahead, Jer. Cry.
No, but see, this is what I think I mentioned on the show at one point a couple of weeks ago is, we're dealing with everything that's a matter of human perception, and that includes every sense you've got that's filtered through this 3-pound brain in your head. It's like, I think we're inadequately equipped to try and perceive it accurately.
Yeah.
And even to recall it accurately. And so ultimately, where I think, and Jeremy's probably, after watching the Kurzweil movie, he may not like this, but I think it's going to ultimately be our technology as technology evolves further and further and further, and it's able to see better than we are on different levels that we can't.
Yes.
I think that's where we're actually going to get something. Like, I don't think we're going to get anything from a person. I don't think I have anything to offer this beyond anybody else. I've got weird crap that I can't explain, that's drastically at times affected my life, and I want to know more about it. But I'm not going to kid myself and say I've got some kind of handle on it. Forget about it. I think ultimately technology is going to evolve to a point where it's going to be, that's where contact, everybody talks about first contact. That's where it's going to happen. It's going to go, there's something over there, and you're going to go, there's nothing over there. And it's going, no, there's something there. And I'm going to try to talk to it, I don't see any big top-down revelation either. I mean, I don't see one point where, oh my God, it's this huge shocking event. I don't see that happening. What I see is like this gradual understanding until it becomes something everybody knows.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who's looking for the brass ring is going to be sorely disappointed. I mean, that's why when people say, well, how do I get into the paranormal? I say, turn around and walk the other way.
Yes.
Because there's nothing to see here. I mean,
exactly.
People will argue that, but it's the truth.
Well, let me ask you guys one more question, because I've had you on here for a while. At this point, I'm probably going to have to make the episode a 2-parter, which is I'm completely fine with. Since you guys know what you don't know, you must experience a tremendous amount of frustration with all of this. I know you've tried to walk away from your show before, and you said, this is it, we're done. We want people to come along and try to record shows for us. Why do you come back? Why do you, this reminds me of the typical experiencer where they can't give up, they can't leave, they can't stop. Why is it that you guys come back knowing with what you have to deal with other people that are out there that don't like you or cause problems, or having to deal with that? What keeps you coming back and wanting to deal with this instead of just saying, to hell with this, we're done?
I don't know. I feel like...
Can you walk away? Is it something you...
Yeah, I could totally walk away. In fact, a lot of times I think about it.
Yeah, but you always go back to Exeter.
Yeah, I've been there once, pal. But no, it's this weird thing of, Jeff and I are going to have these discussions with each other anyway, so we might as well do them for people. I don't know. I feel like every time that we think about calling it quits, something happens that feels important to see through to the end, like the Emma Woods thing, or I don't know, even just threads to pull on in this. So there's always something that comes back and sort of piques our interest. But now I got to be honest. I mean, I don't have a lot of that left in me as far as I can tell. And so at this point, I think I'm here because the listeners seem to want us here, So it's like, well, I guess, at some point you got to do it for someone else, right? So I guess and in some way, I think I'm holding out for the next thing. I am waiting for the other shoe to drop with this phenomenon. I'm waiting to see sort of what happens. But I mean, as far as, the turbulence with the nonsense and, jealousy and people trying to make names off of us and all that, I mean, in a way, that's an honor. Like in a way, if you consider us to be the brass ring, or the political candidate, as it were, that you need to take down to be number one, that's sort of an honor. It's just completely misplaced, because this is not the venue for that type of behavior. Because as you know, it's a podcast, and people listen to podcasts at their leisure. There's no Nielsen boxes. There's no real ratings. So everyone's welcome under this umbrella. So there is no number one,
Yeah, for us, we've ripped off all kinds of shows, but we don't make any secret of it. All of the shows that we've looked up to that we've really liked, we've told everybody, hey, we're into this show, we're into that show. That's why we're doing this show. And yes, we've copied them because we like what they do. We don't make a big secret of it. We've even said on the air, hey, we like this show. Go download their show, listen to them, because they're who we ripped off. Maybe that makes it right, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but we don't run away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'll know. I'll have the feeling when it's time, and I don't have that feeling yet. And I certainly don't want anyone to think that they've chased us out of the field or any of that sort of nonsense. So I think if I went, it would be at the point where there's quiet. At the point where there's quiet and we've done something big, then maybe it's time to call it quits.
It's easy to walk away, though.
Yeah, but you come back too.
Oh yeah, 3 times now.
I mean, you put a post up. You said you think this picture's fake. One episode you were talking about how you put it. People have looked at this photo and they accuse you of being a government agent.
Oh yeah.
And I remember you saying, "That's it. I'm done with photos. I don't want to look at this stuff anymore. I'm completely finished with this."
I mean, you know what's really strange about it, and this thing has forced me to look at my own psychology for a long time, and it's not even what people say about you. It's that they're saying anything about you. Mm-hmm. It's that you just, at some point, you just go, I just want to be left alone. Just leave me alone. What naysayers or haters are saying isn't really what's bothersome. It's the fact that they're even speaking in my direction. I know that sounds really crappy to say it that way, but it's like you just get tired of the droning hiss all the time. And that's what really wears me out. I mean, I get really worn at that. And it's some of the stuff is so outlandishly absurd, and yet you're just like, God, can I just get quiet for a minute? I hate to be like that because it sounds pompous and arrogant, but I don't mean it to be that way. It's just like, leave me be, But the problem is that, and I say this, and it's the truth. I mean, think about this. The last time some big major blowout coincided with something happening, and this has been 3 times now. So I fully expect something to present itself within the next couple of weeks. I mean, it just seems to be the pattern. The minute that there's some gigantic blowout or some moron is throwing stones or whatever, the next thing you know, something drops in our laps. And it almost feels like if you look at a book like Wonders in the Sky, where obviously it looks like something is leading us towards something, I think it happens on a microscopic level, just the same as with this show or you guys. We're all being led somewhere, and maybe that's what's going on. And so I guess we're just holding out to see what happens next. And that's really all it boils down to. I mean, how else would you put up with this kind of crap?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way. Yeah.
It seems like the two of you, and not just the two of you, but the majority of people that get to a point where they're just fed up, but they continually come back. And they get fed up and they come back and they go away and they come back. It almost sounds like Stockholm Syndrome.
Well, I mean, Jacques Vallée's done it a lot of times. I mean, you don't hear much from him. I mean, when he gets done a book and he comes out and he talks about it and then he goes away. I mean, I think there's the smart guy in all of this. I mean, he's involved in it, but as far as being on message boards and engaging people and discussion, and that happens on his terms. That happens in his time. And I think that there's a lesson to be learned there from that.
Yeah, Mr. Vallee is a different creature altogether, though,
I don't think, it's not Stockholm Syndrome in that it's not as though the bad is outweighing the good.
Oh, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I mean, I look forward. When you guys said Paratopia was going down, like, no, come on.
No, I know, but I mean, I'm saying I think we can be drama queens about that too sometimes, and it can feel at the time like this is super important and this is hurting us and blah blah blah, and then you have a weekend off and you go, who cares? These are dummies. Like, who cares? Let's get back to what's important. It always ends up doing that. Let's get back to what's important, and I think what's important, which is challenging these things and opening ourselves to these deeper, richer questions that then, as Jeff is alluding to, all of this push and pull seems to spark something that then falls into our lap, either personally or with the show, in a weird, I mean, Jesus, does that sound stupid to say out loud? But I mean, it just is what it is. That is worth more than the people throwing stones at us. Right. You can sort of take that, and this is deeper and richer than that. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, am I really going to sell myself out for that? Am I really going to deny myself the satisfaction of these types of conversations that I'm not hearing anywhere else? I don't know. I think it's worth sticking around for at this point.
I mean, Jared, don't you think at some point that it feels like you're being purposefully, I don't know, distracted, and it's almost as if something is trying to challenge you to stay on the target? I mean, I've said that before. I mean, I read a lot about occult practices and stuff, and that's kind of where that leads. I mean, when you enter into some kind of occult practice, the books will tell you you're going to be challenged. You're going to be
that's the hero's journey. That's any sort of journey like that.
And I think that's exactly the kind of thing that you see in this. It's like, keep your eye on the target, dude. I'm going to throw distractions at you, but ultimately, whether or not you come out the other side is how dependent you are on what is your level of desire to know.
Well, I almost see it. I guess I see it a little differently in that I think it's that we have the same type of thing thrown at us because we are too stupid to deal with it in any other way than the way we normally deal with it. It's like we haven't found that secret combination to dealing with nonsense. And so maybe that's why, it's sort of like, why do you have the same psychological patterns in your life? Well, it's because you haven't sort of transcended that. You haven't woken up out of them and gone, wait a minute, I have these patterns. I almost wonder, what would happen if we just dealt with this completely differently than we do?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you one last question, then I'll let you guys go. Do you think you're getting through to anybody? Do you think you're making a difference? Do you think that you're educating people out there to go into a better direction?
No.
And scene.
Yeah, no, I think those are actually different questions. I mean, we get emails a lot of the time telling us that we are doing all of those things. Now, ultimately, again, I think for me, my evidence here will be if this phenomenon, again, how pompous does this sound? We're a podcast, right? But will we somehow get this phenomenon to change its tune and to react differently?
Well, no, I mean, do you think you're getting through to anybody's? You're changing people's minds, and you're actually, do you think you're achieving what you're achieving with a lot of people, or do you just think you're? Well, maybe that's a bad question to ask, because if you didn't think you were doing it, you'd probably leave the whole scene completely. But
yeah, no, I think we are. I mean, I definitely. Yeah, I think we are. I think that the important thing that we're doing, maybe if there is an important thing for an audience member, is we're giving them that sort of, I don't know, deep, rich, imaginative journey that we all crave. That mystery with a capital M, that maybe has been taken over by religion or whatever. And I think we maybe give that sort of yearning for more. People want to come back for more. That I've gotten from, for instance, Dreamland. I used to be a huge Dreamland fan, and anytime Whitley Strieber would talk, I got into that mode. And so I think we give that to people, but I also think that the one thing that we've heard over and over again that is kind of surprising is that we make this real for people, which I guess I interpret to mean that that they're at a place where they're done with the same old ufological answers that don't pan out, that are based on, as Jeff says, a house of cards or a castle in the air. It's okay to do away with that stuff. Once again, here we go, right back to the beginning. It's okay to do away with that stuff because there is an honesty underneath it. It's okay to do away with the false because there is a true. We still don't know what that truth is. And as with any good truth, that it's mystery with a capital M. And so I think that's what we give people. We give people the mystery with a capital M that they crave and that ufology does not provide.
Jeff, do you have anything to add to that, or did he pretty much sum it up for you?
Well, see,
no.
This is where he and I differ. Is like I
don't give a crap.
No. Are we giving people stuff to think about? Sure, but I'm sure your show does that as well. I mean, it's
hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you didn't think you were doing something, you wouldn't stick with it, because really, what's the point other than just talking? That's all we're doing anyway. But I think it's more a very small subset of the people that are interested in this might be getting something out of it. What I question is are we on any sort of cohesive, correct track in the way we should be thinking about it? I don't know. Again, this is a chuck out of ideas, and it's making assumptions at times, and just free thinking, and I think that's good. So I think if we give that, or we've done that, then that's great. But do I think we're making any kind of real headway yet? No, but I'm not saying that won't happen. But I hope people get something out of it. I don't know if I can attach like extreme value to it. I'm just not sure.
All right, Lobo, do you have anything you want to ask?
Yeah, I got one question for Jeremy. You ready?
Go for it.
How did you really feel about Garbage Pail Kids? I'm just kidding.
Wah, wah, wah.
Just kidding. No, man, you guys tore my brain apart. That's awesome.
What, with the Garbage Pail Kids review on the Good Parade, or with this?
Not a worry in the world. No, just this. This was more than I ever expected. I mean, my brain is frying right now. I don't know how I'm going to go to sleep to wake up in 2 hours.
Guys, thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This was really cool. This was neat. This was hopefully
do we have time for me to self-aggrandize a little bit more about the importance of our show?
Give us a promo for your show, for God's sake. All of them.
I know. I listen to it every time it comes out, for God's sake. So, yeah.
We'll run your promos free of charge.
What's the name of the book, Jer?
The book? Oh, actually, yeah. I have a new book.
Oh, yeah. It's right. I have a book out, don't I?
That. I have a book called Urgency.
Sleep by Jeremy Vaney.
Urgency.
Don't talk over my promo. I'm trying to give people pertinent information so that I can make money.
All right, you're done. Jeff, go ahead.
So the name of the book again, so nobody talks.
Oh, that, right. Yes, the book is called Urgency. You can pretty much get it anywhere. Probably the easiest way is through Amazon. It's also on the Kindle and on the Pub It, whatever that Barnes & Noble thing is. What's that called? The Nook. The Nook. The thing that I use is called Pub It to get it onto the Nook. But okay, so it's on the Nook, it's on the Kindle, it's in paperback. It's getting rave reviews from, I don't know if you would call them contemporaries and readers alike. So there you go. Yeah.
And the name
what's it about? What's it about? Doesn't matter.
No, really. What's it? Give us a thumbnail.
Oh God, the thumbnail.
Just a dime store tour.
I'm trying to wake us up out of our separate self sense into this oneness nonsense that I was sort of talking about earlier. Will it work? It's an experiment. I'm going to go with no, it won't. But it'll be a good read. So there you go.
Cool. So if I buy it and I send it to you, will you autograph it?
Yeah, but I probably won't send it back. I mean, that's...
I'll come in a pet store. Come on.
And then our website, of course, is paratopia.net, not .com, paratopia.net.
Yeah.
And what about the Black Fridays?
The Black Fridays, I'm actually, I haven't been co-hosting there for a while just because I ran out of time. But I'll give them a plug, sure. That the Black Fridays I used to co-host on, which was theblackfridays.net. And in fact, Stacey Lowry of there just interviewed me about my book. So if you want to actually hear what my book is about, you can go listen to it there.
Okay.
Cool.
What do
you got going on, Jeff?
What do I got going on? I got nothing. I've been working on the same book for 5 years. It doesn't look good.
And it's a coloring book.
No sense of urgency. The Jeff Ritzman story.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm going to call it, too. I'm on chapter 5, though. I think that's progress over 5 years. One chapter a year? What more could you want?
Yes.
I should be done by the time I pass.
There's always auto writing.
Yeah. I mean, aside from our site, I'll plug abovetopsecret.com. Go check them out. Biggest alt forums on the net, and the UFO crowd there, by and large, pretty sharp group. So go check that out every once in a while.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. We'll pump your shows.
Thank you, guys. And
Thank you.
It's been fun.
So that was the Jeffrey Ritzman, Jeremy Vaney 2-hour extravaganza episode.
Roller coaster.
It was cool. It was really neat having them on here. They, I think at first they were kind of guarded to talk to us because they've been through so much controversy. They didn't know who we were. Oh, absolutely. And then on top of that, as we said, me and you were just a couple of knuckleheads, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning, and we recorded that whole thing around that time period. But they loosened up, they got cool with it, got a little silly, and it just kind of rolled from there. But I was really happy with how much. Again, this is something else that seems to happen with us. Whenever we get guests on the show, they always open up with new stuff or new things that they haven't talked about before.
Yeah. Like
strange. Jeff talking about the missing time situations, and Jeremy said, have you done this before? And I was like, you guys have never talked about this kind of stuff?
Right. That was really cool.
And then Jeff somehow managed to pull my stories out of me, which I very seldom tell anymore.
And I was keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
this time I was keeping my mouth shut.
You said your piece last time, so.
Oh, I got a whole barrel of crud that's gone on, so.
Yeah, and they want us to come on their show at some point.
I know, dude, that's so awesome.
I know. And we're like, okay, we're like Beavis and Butthead. Yeah, that was the show. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We hope it didn't get too deep and existential for you. That's pretty much it. So I guess we'll see you guys in a few days. All right, folks. This is Roejen. Peace out from the D.
The D? Aw, come on. I thought it was somewhere slightly
south of the D. Connecticut. I don't know. Somewhere south of the D, actually closer to Ohio. Than the D.
The D.
But somewhere out there.
This is Lobo from a better Connecticut, because it doesn't suck here anymore.
Peace out, people.
Peace.
Hey, this is Raj Chaos. You guys said you wanted heavy breathing, so here you go. Just gotta say, Project Archivist is a great show, so keep it up. Bye.